when I was in the hospital this last time in December, one of the nurses, but she said, "What did you used to do?" Used to do? I'm still doing it. I guess she was just trying to make conversation and, see me as a whole person. But I think she assumed I had had an injury, that I used to have a life before disability and don't anymore. I mean, I know she didn't mean any harm. Nevertheless, I was
As
offended.
is your
Uh,
right.
and I told her, I'm still doing it. I'm a writer.
It's a good
Uh,
learning opportunity for her.
Often nurses, and they see me, they learn about me. If my wife is helping me, they sometimes need to be educated by her because they're not listening to me. But there's always this, wow, I didn't know somebody like that could function at a certain level. Maybe I'm unusual. There are a lot of us unusual people out there. And God, I wish it weren't always our burden to educate others quite so much. I mean, I
Absolutely.
understand you can't generalize. And if I need something in particular, I have to speak up about it. But I do wish doctors, nurses, and other providers had more exposure, more familiarity with disabled folks so that it wasn't quite so new all the time.
I get
Yeah,
that. I totally get that. And it's exhausting to have to teach a new group of people every time about your basics and your everyday ordinary life
yeah.
and what you need. And that's where I feel like, as dark and frustrating as the history of disability in healthcare is, I feel like we're at this point now in our culture where doctors can start standing up and being advocates, because as unacceptable as the healthcare system is, it's like very clear where there can be easy improvements made, like educating healthcare providers, students about disability conscious care and sort of reorganizing how we teach our trainees. That's something that we should involve disabled people in, certainly, but that eventually long term, I think, will take that burden away from people who have to,
Mm,
who have complex level needs or needs that aren't as common as needing an ASL interpreter. If you need wheelchair mobility, or if you need sensory friendly environments or visual call bells, all of those
mm.
things medicine is responsible for providing. And we need to increase our familiarity with these things.
Yeah, call bells. That's a sore point for me because I can't work any of the hospital call bells. And I know there's technology out there, but they just don't have it.
It's hard because there is so much inconsistency across the healthcare system. I've worked in a good number of hospitals, and the best and most accessible hospital I ever worked in was Ranchos Los Amigos, which is
Oh,
just
yes,
south of you in Downey. I don't know
I
if you
know.
know it. Yes. So I
Okay.
used to work there, and I have some
Oh,
good friends there. And their wholly new renovated building, their doorways are wide enough. All of their exam tables are Hoyer lift adapted and height
oh,
adjustable. They have wheelchair accessible scales. It's
ah,
just a great example of a universally designed healthcare building. It sucks that it's so rare to find something like that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look, there are a lot of problems with the healthcare delivery system in this country. When I was in the hospital, it's like every day a different doctor comes in every few hours. So if you've explained to one doctor, you have to explain it again and again and again. God, afterward, I came home, I had a drain they installed. I had an abscess in my gut. Well, if something goes wrong, who do we call? Well, who was your doctor? Lots of doctors. I don't know. I feel like it could be simplified to know what doctor is following you at a particular time. And oh, I don't know. It's very frustrating.
That's a very good example of something that seems pretty straightforward. It's like, yeah, better consistency, better communication, at least between doctors if they're changing shifts. Healthcare does not communicate well amongst themselves. And it would be so much easier to have providers who were just more knowledgeable and cared about the continuity. And that's not something that's special to any specialty or hospital or clinic. It's kind of
Mm-mm.
universal.
We had to bring a lot of my home equipment to the hospital because they just didn't have it. I mean, I have a cough assist device, which is sort of a positive pressure on the lungs. I think of it as an exercise, but it helps clear stuff up. Oh, we asked and asked. I couldn't find one. Finally, after a few days, and my wife brought the one from home. There's so many ways that it's needlessly uncomfortable, even potentially dangerous, but they're just not equipped. Well, not for me anyway, and probably for a lot of other folks too.
You're touching on something that I always think of. It's like what would be the perfect, accessible, inclusive healthcare system? What would it look like? And in my mind, it would look like if you needed to be admitted to the
Uh,
hospital, they would know you needed a cough assist machine, and they would know how to check your skin, roll you over without closing your tracheostomy. But I think we're a little far away from that because we need to start with the basics of like we need to teach doctors what a cough assist machine is. It's silly to admit that, like, oh, we need to teach doctors about healthcare. It's like, yeah, they did not get taught correct.
right, right.
Um, they were missing a huge chunk of the lived experience of being a human and needing
Oh yeah.
healthcare. I'm very excited to chat more with you about this. I feel like we could have a whole other conversation specifically on accessing healthcare. Another one of my pet projects, I just want to share this with you for future. I'm trying to devise a survey for people to fill out, maybe with their doctors or on their own, a survey assessing not just disability identity and like, things they need help with, but their specific access needs, like a cough assist machine or like,
Mm,
a guide dog or something like that.
mm,
It would be a part of someone's health record and it would be very clear to a provider who
mm,
maybe wasn't familiar with disability. It would already be recorded like, oh, this person needs clear masks. Like, let's break out the clear masks.
mm.
So that's something I'll keep you updated on
Yeah.
as we move forward with it.
You know about the doctor at Harvard, I think. I'm going to say her name wrong.
Iozoni?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
it. Huh,
Yeah, that's Lisa Iozoni. I have her book here actually.
oh, great. She's
She
done great work.
She has
Yeah.
done amazing work throughout her
Yeah.
career. This is her most recent work. It's called Making Their Days Happen, and it's about
Okay.
long-term personal care and the crisis that we're in right now. But it's a good one.
I wasn't able to speak with her for my book. She was occupied, but I quoted from her work quite a bit. Her surveys of other
Yes,
doctors and just their total lack of education or exposure to disabled folks.
absolutely. I always quote the statistic from that study on how only 18% of physicians surveyed agreed that the healthcare system treated people with disabilities unfairly. So 82% of physicians lack
Yeah,
that understanding.
yeah.
I just wanted to see if you had any other sort of thoughts or things you wanted to share from this conversation or just the things that you already shared.
It's funny you mentioned the R word. My first book was a memoir, came out about 12 years ago. And I finally convinced the publisher we're going to put out a paperback edition with a new introduction. Going over it, I realized I used the R word several times in the book. At the time, I thought I was being, I don't know, medical, clinical, whatever. It didn't
Mm,
seem like a problem. Well, that's part of my new awareness. Although, fairness to me, language does change. We were
yes,
all people with disabilities once. Now a lot of folks are just saying, say disabled people, disability first. Anyway, I'm old enough to realize that these things change. But anyway, I'm going to make sure the editors fix the R word in my new edition of my book.
that's very
And
exciting. And you're calling yourself out and you're keeping yourself accountable, which, you're teaching by example.
I know one reader who was offended and, didn't read the rest of the book. But, as you said, I hope we can not judge one another too harshly. As you said, there are differences of opinion and we all make mistakes. And even in writing Disability Pride, I thought, I will not speak for blind people, deaf people, autistic people, black and brown people, because I'm not in those communities. It's not appropriate. Heck, I can't even speak for all old white guys in wheelchairs. It's just,
That's fair.
yeah, I do wish certain members of the disability community would not diss others. We need to educate one another too.
I'm so glad that you're highlighting that sentiment because you're right that ideally the disability advocacy movement would be the most inclusive and welcoming. And when advocates themselves are less than inclusive and welcoming, that's going against the mission, perpetuating maybe more trauma and more mistreatment, which is obviously disabled people have had enough of that. I do want to proudly say that during the times that I've used this R word case scenario with my colleagues, students, there's been really nice discussion, not only on what's a better term, what would you replace it with, but how to diplomatically turn this into a learning opportunity for a colleague who happened to make that mistake. Like, you might not just directly confront them, you might teach by example, you might speak with another colleague, just to kind of express your feelings. There's so many appropriate reactions that don't involve aggressive criticism or,
I mean, again, at my age, seeing terminology change, I know it matters, but I've always felt there's more important stuff than language. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe language reflects attitude, and I'm a great believer in precise language. You can use the right word and still have a terrible attitude.
You're 100% right. Language isn't the only thing. I found that it's a useful introductory tool, right? So if someone is really resistant or really, I don't know if ignorance is the right word, or unaware of the whole disability advocacy movement, giving them one new word to say is kind of that foot in the door moment.
Yeah.
Instead of totally converting them, at least you've flicked one switch in their mind. So I found that to ease people in, which can be accessible.
When I was growing up, handicap was the good word, the polite word. Things do change.
Oh, absolutely. Always got to check in with the movement and see what's appropriate, what's respectful. But the fact that we're listening more, that's very important, and we can celebrate that. If you want to hear more conversations like this, hit that like button and subscribe to Disability Clinic for more accessible and inclusive education. Until next time, thank you for watching, listening, and learning. Do you have any preferences for intro music, your theme music? Do you have a song?
Oh gosh, not really.
No, you don't have a jam right now?
No, I'd have to think about that. No, I really don't.
Are you not a music person? Is there a movie or a TV show theme song that you identify with? Yeah, think about it. But that usually I like to have people's song choices, preferences as part of the intro. So feel free to think about it, and if you can't come up with something, no pressure. I'll try to come up with something too.
I suppose for popularity, I would think of something by Taylor Swift. So I don't know.
I love some Taylor. You have a favorite Taylor song, or
Yeah,
there's
really?
Look what you just made me do.